The June 8th, 2026 Board of Education regular meeting. Thank you all for attending the regular meeting of the board. I would like to remind you that school board meetings in Nebraska are meetings held in public, not public meetings. During the public comment section, the public may address the board on agenda items and other miscellaneous topics. Sheila, can we please get roll call?
Cindy O'Connor.
Present.
Emily Garrett.
Present.
Angela Blazey.
Present.
Mitch Wagner.
Present.
Skip Aldrich.
Present.
Brandon Green.
Present.
North Platte Public Schools is a destination school district and community that embraces innovative opportunities and distinguished programs to create highly competitive advantages for all students, instilling the canteen spirit in an evolving world. The canteen spirit embodies generosity, selflessness, and unwavering support through service, pride, collaboration, and grit. The Nebraska Open Meetings Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is posted here in the boardroom. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the publication of the June 8th, 2026 regular meeting of the Board of Education.
I'll make a motion to approve the publication of the June 8th, 2026 regular meeting of the Board of Education. Second.
Okay. Notices of Board of Education meetings and hearings are placed in the North Platte Telegraph and the North Platte Bulletin. The agenda is also available online at nppsd.org 4 days prior to each regular meeting of the North Platte Board of Education. Sheila, can we get roll call on that, please?
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Angela Blazey.
Aye.
Mitch Wagner.
Aye.
Skip Aldrich.
Aye.
Brandon Green.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Motion passes. At this time, I would also entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the June 8th, 2026 regular meeting of the Board of Education.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for the June 8th, 2026 regular meeting of the Board of Education. Second.
All right, roll call, please, Sheila.
Angela Blazey.
Aye.
Mitch Wagner.
Aye.
Skip Aldrich.
Aye.
Brandon Green.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye. At this time, please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will start off with our foundation report.
Assuming this is on already. Thank you. Good evening. So we're going to start out with the Bulldog Golf Classic on May 29th. It was a success with 22 teams and a generosity of 37 sponsors, which is the most we've had for this golf tournament that's gone on for 6 years. So it was very exciting. This event also benefits the North Platte High School Booster Club. The funds raised also help to support the touchscreen, the Rocket software over at the high school, in case you're not aware of that. The foundation will be paying the ongoing subscription to that. So we do have Mr. Willie working on getting more content on that. So every time you're over at the high school, go check it out because there's going to be something new there. We don't have all the expenses submitted quite yet, but we know we've raised over $15,000. So we're anxious to get those numbers in. Evening of Excellence, Christmas in July, is fast approaching on July 24th at venue 304. All 3 distinguished alumni, Herbert Birch from the class of 63, Greg Loya, class of 95, and Tad Hanneborg, class of 98, will be in attendance. So hopefully you can attend. Watch social media for the silent auction items going live ahead of the event. The ticket sales go towards a scholarship for the future distinguished alumni. And this year we're going to have the speaker of the 2026 recipient, Maddie Hildebrandt, speaking at our event. So we're excited about that. The auction supports our programs like the Teacher Reach Grants and also the Prepared to Learn funds for students. This year, we had the principals all submit a list to fill out a Christmas tree ornaments. And so those are going to be our funded needs. So it's been exciting to see the different lists from across the district of what they feel like their needs are for the next school year. A lot of them waited after they turned in their requisitions to find out what they might need. So to fill those gaps in the budget. So we have a goal of reaching 50,000 this year, which is an audacious goal, but we have positive thoughts that we'll be able to reach that. Also, the foundation is has launched the Summer Launch Enrichment Program. It's off to a great start. We have 86 students registered for 14 different sessions. Classes range for kindergarten through 12th grade. The K-5 classes sold out pretty much immediately when we put the registration out there, reflecting the strong community interest in that age group. So we're going to focus on that a little bit more next year. There's still openings available for the 6th through 12th classes. There are a couple classes that only have a few more spots, but if you know anyone that's interested, get them signed up quick because we'll be closing registration soon. We hope that this is both affordable and engaging for the students in the community. This isn't just for North Platte district students, it's opened up to the community, so we're excited about that. And families can register on our foundation website, the nppsf.org. Just click on the summer lunch tab. And strategic planning update. Last week, the foundation board met to review the strategic plan that does align with the district, just to see where we were over this last year and where we're going to the next year. Understanding the priorities of the district is a vital role to our partnership. So a sincere thank you to Mr. Altig for participating and his insights during that session. His input was very valuable to refine our mission and plan for the future. We're very excited about that. Do you have any questions or comments for me? All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Carrie.
it. All right, we will move on to public comment. Public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guidelines for public comments form with the date, topic addressing, name, address, and the name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting. Okay. All right, at this time, we will go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. So I will first entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it presented.
Second.
A consent agenda, also known by Robert's Rules of Order as a consent calendar, groups routine meeting discussion points into a single agenda item. In so doing, the grouped items can be approved in one action rather than through the filing of multiple motions. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. So on our consent agenda tonight, we have item 9.1 to approve the minutes of the May 11th, 2026 regular meeting of the Board of Education. 9.2, approve the minutes of the May 28th, 2026 Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting, and those have been updated there a couple of times. 9.3, approve the teaching contract for Misty Roberts-Ham affected for the 2026-2027 school year. 9.4, approve the teaching contract of Jacqueline, okay, Colbera, effective for the 2026-2027 school year. And 9.5, approve the financial claims and reports, which this month, those were audited by myself and board member Joanne Lundgren. Joanne, do you have any comments or a recommendation to make on this?
I would recommend that we approve them.
Okay, I have the same recommendation. One note on there in case board members were curious, this time of year, the claims are a little bit longer than usual. So on the credit card statements, a lot of that you see is requisitions for supplies for next year. And then on the checks that were written, this is the time of the school year that we pay for mileage for students who live further than 4 miles from their assigned school building. And so you'll see a lot of those show up on there. So if you looked at those and you were curious about that, that's something that's a little bit unique to this month. But I would also share the same recommendation that we approve those. Any discussion or questions from board members? Okay, Sheila, roll call on that, please.
Rich Wagner,
Aye.
Dick Altig,
Aye.
Joanne Lundgren,
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor,
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Our first discussion item for tonight, our first report, I should say, is our monthly financial and budget report with Dr. McDonald. So I will turn this over to him.
Thank you. I think you all have a copy, a hard copy, and it's also part of the digital agenda as well. We did have a nice receipt month this month for May. We received $15,883,233.02. Our expenditures again were on average $4,394,421. If you go down, you can see that our cash on hand currently is $9,143,430.30. That should be able to carry us through June, July, and August, which will be lower receipt months as typically May is our largest one of the year. We are currently, for the month of May, about 8% under budget. And that's again, according to the budgeted amount of receipts, which we had anticipated at the beginning of the year, set at 57 million or 57.5 million and some change. We're currently sitting at 47.6 million and some change as far as the budget is concerned, moving forward. So, as we look at those totals and as we look at the overall general fund, we're back in the green again. So that's always a good sign. The next one is just some scenarios. What I did for, oops, maybe
I
not.
think she's in May.
What's that?
I think she's got the May one up.
Oh, okay. Is it not up there? That's all right. It's, you do have a hard copy of that in its digital form. So anyway, it's the general fund again, but what I did is took June, July, and August and ran just averages from last year for receipts in June, July, and August. Those 3 months last year were roughly $5.3 million. Expenditure stayed the same, except for June. On average, June was a little bit higher as in regards to the requisitions that were coming in from staff and also from some of the building maintenance types of things that we were doing for the district as well. So right now, which would look like receipts would be coming around 53 million of the 57.5 million. Hopefully that's a little bit higher, and then the cash on hand, obviously moving forward, would be a little bit more, but the projection would be about $450,000 in the positive for cash on hand to begin the next budget cycle for the next year. Keep in mind that based on that, the beginning balance where we were in negative 647,000 and some change, the funds that we've been utilizing through our depreciation, again, that kind of washes that out. So the general fund is looking better, but the depreciation dollars that we're using for some of those road projects and some other projects that Mr. Ayers went over with us, those types of projects were roughly the same as what we're going to bring in. So the general fund is looking better. Depreciation is obviously utilizing some of those funds. So at some point we'll have to have a discussion budgetarily and how we want to move forward and replace those funds, depreciation and where we want to go as a district there. So that's kind of where we're at in regards to scenarios. Obviously, we'll keep you updated with the committee of the wholes coming up, as well as just other board regular meetings, as those receipts and expenditures and continue to predict that moving. So any questions on the scenario information there? The cash flow report, I think that Sheila, that you had up there before, again, with all the May receipts, we are in the positive. The beginning cash balance total for all funds was $3,266,086.23. Revenues for the month, all funds were $16,382,538.14. Expenditures for the month, $4,869,477.73, leaving us with an ending cash balance, all funds, $14,779,146.64. I think that the reconciliation statement was in there to match the cash flow report. And then the last one was just on the enrollment comparison. I just ran it on the last day of school so you can kind of see where we finished up, which is pretty similar to where we were on May 7th. May 13th, total enrollment was 3,282 students, K through 12. And then below that is with our early childhood, 6 pence, birth to 5, representing throughout the district there. And so the grand total for everything, all students, 3,538 for the year. Keep in mind that there's probably 100 less there just from the standpoint of those seniors that graduated earlier. in the school year, so. With that, I would take any questions that you have.
First, just so I don't forget, can we make sure we attach this to the agenda after tonight? So if anybody who's writing reports, I don't see this, and maybe it's just on my end, I don't
The
see the
scenario.
attachment.
It's not attached on mine.
Mm-mm. So we can just make.
Total
sure-
attachment?
Yeah, the whole attachment isn't on there. No, it's okay. We've got it in front of us. I just want to make sure that for anybody who's watching the meeting or wants to look at numbers, they've got access to that.
I had one on my head.
Sounds good. Easy fix. So I had a question, Dr. McDonald. So you presented this chart here, obviously, that's kind of the scenarios chart. And not too terribly long ago, when we had our committee of the whole at the high school, whichever month that was, you kind of presented us with some different options of kind of knowing where you thought we were going to be with cash on hand at the beginning of next school year and what that would look like, depending on different budget scenarios, plugging numbers in and looking at different levies and those kinds of things. Is that something that you would anticipate? Maybe we could pick that conversation back up, maybe at our next committee of the whole meeting. And now that we've got a little better idea of where that looks like it could be.
Yeah, what I anticipate is just, we're kind of wrapping up some of the para information as we go through that and we'll plug that into the budget and get some of those numbers. And so, my anticipated, where I would like to be is just to be able to show you kind of what those expenditures look like, as a whole moving forward based on all the agreements that we've had moving forward and some anticipated inflationary types of things. So we'll have a pretty good idea what our expenditures would be, and then we can kind of talk through the variables to say, okay, if our cash balance is here, this is what this looks like. We can talk about transfers, if we want to have transfers to help with the depreciation and activities, those types of things, as far as variables are concerned. So yes, we can.
The attachments there, Sheila. Thanks. I just saw it.
So that for the June committee of the whole, that's where I'd like to at least bring up and be able to have that discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be great. And especially where, everybody's gotten their valuations in, and that's kind of obviously a hot topic right now, but we also have a little bit more information to fill in than we had. And so I think as early as we can start that conversation for next year is beneficial to us as a board, and it's beneficial to our staff to know what's going on, and it's beneficial to our community. So I think that would be great. Any other questions from the board for Dr. McDonald this month? Okay, thank you. You're up again on our legislative update. So you'll see there's an attachment there from Dr. McDonald, and I'm going to turn it right back over to him.
Sure. I'll just kind of go over the synopsis and I don't know, Skip, if you've heard anything else. This is just kind of an overview in regards to what took place and from.
Yeah, we haven't
KSB's
met or done anything. No, we'll be meeting August 6th and 7th. For an overview of what they expect will happen next January, depending on elections. And also the fact that it'll be a 90-day session. So we'll meet on August 6th and 7th.
Okay. Yeah, and this overview is from KSB and just some information that they've out to all the boards that they represent. So the first one is LB 258 to talk about minimum wage. The current minimum wage is $15 per hour. It does say that each January 1st, it will increase by 1.75%. But according to statute 48-1202, this specifically excludes Nebraska Public Schools from the definition of employer in which the minimum wage applies. So Nebraska Public Schools is actually exempt from the minimum wage when they talk about the increases in regards to LB 258. But things to keep in mind with that is that if your school pays our classified staff, obviously we do, and the rate would happen to be below the minimum wage, then that wouldn't count towards credible service as far as their retirement with their school plan. And so that's how the minimum wage would affect those types of plans for for employees in particular. So that was the minimum wage law that was passed, LB 258. LB 383 was on sexting laws and parent consent for social media accounts. LB 383 criminalizes the creation of AI or computer generated content depicting minors. What they indicate that this is called or referred to as deep fakes. And this is a part of the Student Discipline Act that permits discipline for a violation of Nebraska law, including these laws. So that's a part of the policy for our Student Discipline Act. We'll include this language in there as well. So 383 also created the parental rights in social media. It's to take effect July 1st, and it basically says any person creating a social media account must go through an age verification process. The law prohibits any minor from creating a social media account. Minor is defined as an individual known or reasonably believed by a social media platform to be under 18 years of age. The law only permits a minor to have an account if a parental consents, signs an oath, and completes an age verification process on behalf of the child. Even a 17-year-old senior in high school will need parent consent. So that's going to be something that's new. I know that in other states, I think Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, some of those social media had some legal processes and they succeeded in other states, but Nebraska held firm and now they have a law. So that's, of course, something that will be new for minors in the state of Nebraska. LB 745 is on high school equivalency. It removes the age restriction and waiting period previously required. The new law eliminates both of those requirements. The bill retains the existing eligibility criteria. Applicants must still establish 30-day Nebraska residency or have last earned credits at a Nebraska high school, and they must demonstrate educational achievement equivalent to a typical high school graduate through approved testing. LB 803 was passed. This is the pink postcard bill. It indicates and requires all school districts to participate in a joint public hearing that must occur between July 1st and July 14th. This goes into effect January 1st of 2027. And school districts will need to participate in that joint public meeting after that date between those two, July 1st and July 14th, whenever that is set up by the county. So
I love your exclamation point on there, like we're all very
Yeah.
excited about it. Appreciate the enthusiasm.
LB 824 is the retirement, the 120 days retirement. It specifically says that during the 120-day period, a member who terminates service and takes a distribution cannot perform any work for a school plan employer, including substitute teaching, volunteering, independent contracting, or working through a third-party organization that serves school plan employers. So that was new to the retirement. LB 935 is on swatting, creates a new criminal offense of swatting. Swatting is knowingly makes, causes to be made, or directs a false or misleading report of criminal activity or a need for emergency medical services or assistance for firefighters. Such report is made to a law enforcement agency, public safety answering point, or any other emergency response organization. The person knows or responsibly should know the report is false or misleading, and the report results in the dispatch of law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency response personnel. If they're convicted, it's a class 1 misdemeanor. A violation of the new law can also be a class 2 felony if the violation was in proximity, and they have some definitions to that as well. So they're trying to put some teeth into swatting calls. And just a couple more here. LB 938 is on attorney fees. It allows a political subdivision to request an award of costs and attorney fees if the political subdivision is a defendant against a claim that is frivolous or intended primarily to harass a political subdivision or its public officials. And 2, another party asserts a defense against a claim of the political subdivision, and such defense is frivolous or intended primarily to harass the political subdivision or its public officials. LB 940 is on color additives beginning August 1st of 2027. Public schools may not offer color additives within its food program. And it goes through all of the blue, number 1, 2, green 3, red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6. And last but not least, LB 1126 is on public-private partnership contracts. This is new. It amended the Political Subdivision Construction Alternatives Acts to add a new project delivery system. It indicates that public-private partnership contracts would allow school districts, they can enter into a public-private partnership contract as a method for construction or financing of capital projects or procurement of services in response to unsolicited proposals. The law requires that if adopted, specific policies for entering into this contract. So if it's something that the district would find beneficial, then we would reach out to our school attorneys, and there's some policies and procedures that we would have to adopt prior to going through with the public-private partnership contracts. That's the overview of the legislative report in this year and moving on to next year.
All right. Excellent. Any questions from board members or anything that you want to add to that discussion? All right. Thanks. Okay, we will go ahead then and dive into our handbooks for this evening. So there are attachments there of both student, employee, and then of course, continuing our board education handbook. There's a theme tonight. So we will start with our student handbook. Do we have anyone here that wants to speak on student handbook or give us an overview of any of the changes here? Or do we want to just dive right into the board?
I don't
Discussing.
think, no, it's all redlined. And so I believe in the student handbook, the yellow would be the new, and the red, I think, was stricken through. That's all KSB. KSB has looked that over. All of those recommendations come from KSB. There were some employee changes in regards to names throughout as we look at the 26-27 school year. But I think it's pretty straightforward in regards to their recommendations, in regards to any policy changes that we are recommending or needed to be placed in the student handbook.
I think I just had a couple questions and it was more just verifying, and I can email Mrs. Busher if that would be more appropriate, but I'll ask him here in case anyone else had the same questions. On page 10, there was a red line section under excused absences. And I'm sure this came from policy change attorney recommendation, but that first paragraph that is struck there, physical illness of the student or of a child whom the student is parenting, a physician's verification is required after 4 consecutive days. It didn't look like there was language that's necessarily replacing that to indicate that illness is an excused absence. Do you know what's up
I
with that?
don't know. It might be appropriate just to email
Okay.
Mrs. Busher on that and in regards to her conversation and what KSB had indicated there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I wasn't sure on that one. It looked like to me the paragraph above where it says excused absences, physical or mental illness,
Right.
maybe was, but I
Just
mean,
kind
it
of
would
the
be good to
replacement for
get
that.
clarification, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's clear for, like, if parents are reading that they understand that that is still an excused absence. So I just wanted to be sure on that.
Also on that, I think there was a policy proposal that went along with that,
Mhm.
so.
So it'll be updated
Yeah.
probably anyways after that. Yes. There was another one I just had a clarifying question on, let me find it real quick. On page 32, under breakfast, so it states that students who qualify for free or reduced price lunch also qualify for free or reduced price breakfast, which makes sense. But then it continues on to say the school district charges students $0 and adults $2.75 for breakfast. So I just wasn't sure, like, are we still tracking free and reduced breakfast, or is that sentence? I don't know. I just don't know if that's gonna
I thought there
confuse
was a
people.
program that paid for breakfast.
Well, yeah, we charge them $0, which is indicated there. I wasn't sure what
As far as
that.
tracking how many breakfasts or how many,
Yeah, is that more of like a logistical thing? Or I guess I don't know why it says if they qualify for free and reduced lunch, they qualify for free or reduced breakfast, because they all get free breakfast.
Yeah, that's maybe something we can just clarify. I don't, I think, I mean, Sodexo does track those.
Okay,
But I'm not sure.
so maybe just from a documentation standpoint.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we can ask about that. And then I think I had one more question on my end, but it's gonna take me a minute to find it because I have to close out and read my notes. So if anybody else has anything, feel free to chime in.
I had a couple of things. One, was I was a little bit confused on page 6 in the notice of non-discrimination. It talks about students who believe that they have been the subject of unlawful discrimination or harassment due to their disability, et cetera, should contact Kevin Mills. But then later in the document, I believe it mentions that the contact is Mr. Allen for that specific topic. Mr. Mills, do you know? Let me see if I can find it, because I think it was down maybe under, was it under the Title 9? No. I didn't make a note of where the other part was, but it is mentioned later. It's clear towards the end. Let me see if I can find it.
Was it highlighted?
I believe so, yes.
I assume they probably both were changed from.
Yeah, and so I just
Students.
wasn't sure because in the top part, it talks about Mr. Mills for all of those categories, but then
All right.
later it mentions Mr. Allen and then,
29.
okay, and then Mr. Mills.
Sensibly that they will have been the subject of unlawful discrimination or harassment due to their disability should contact following section 504 coordinator Jeff Allen.
Yeah, so that was just a discrepancy that I saw. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention was on page 60. And I didn't get a chance to ask Mr. Spatansky until today, so I have sent an email, but he is out of the office. So I am confident he will get back to me, but I have asked him for some data regarding graduation and I think as you may remember, I had mentioned some things around the distinction, highest distinction. And so I just wanted to maybe be able to have a conversation about that again. So before we start the school year next year.
That sounds good. If he responds and just sends you the information, would you mind sending it to the rest of the board too, so that they have it? I don't know, some administrators send to all and some don't, but I think that would be good for us to have. Thank you for asking that question. I found my other spot on page 68 and 69, where it talks about the pre-kindergarten through second grade students suspension. Is that, so I see that there's an added language there. There's some highlighted language, but is that consistent with the legislation that was passed this year? Is that what their language? Okay, perfect. I just wanted to double check that because I knew there had been a change there and I assumed that's what that was about, but just wanted to make sure. Okay. And then the only other thing, I know we kind of talked about this last year, but my only other thought and suggestion is, in this handbook, since so much of this is policy language, if we could reference the policy numbers, I know that might be a process to go through and do that. But I think that it would be really helpful for people because in some of the cases, the whole policy is there. In some cases, it might just be an excerpt, and some of them do have links, but some don't. So I just wondered if maybe that could be on our list of things that we just progressively either link to policy or reference the policy number. And I think that kind of serves as a double check because then if the policy updates and we can quickly glance through there and see policy numbers, it's kind of a reminder to go back and update the handbook too.
Yeah, and I think, well, and I'm sure it's just because we haven't approved it yet, but the Title IX language in here is different than in the suggested
Right.
policy that we have, so.
Mhm.
The only other thing I would mention, because I actually didn't do it on this document, but I did on the employee document, is just making sure that all of the links work. I have a few notes of pages in the employee handbook that it took me to websites that don't exist anymore. So that would be something that we probably need to just make sure, have someone go through and click on all the links and make sure that everything is still there. Or goes to the right place.
All right, anything else from the board on the student handbook? Okay, I will say I really appreciated having the red line version and not having to feel like we needed to start from scratch and read all 100 pages compared to the year before to figure out what had changed. So that was very helpful. So thank you to those who did that. All right, not hearing any further discussion on that, we will go ahead then and move on to our employee handbook. Just know that the student handbook, I would say we can have some answers to our questions probably at this committee of the whole meeting, end of this month. If you do come up with any other questions, there's actually a second opportunity to discuss this, and then we would approve in July. Is that what you're thinking, Dr. McDonald? Okay. Perfect. So we've got a little bit of time. If you didn't make it all the way through it before this meeting, you've still got some reading time. So congratulations. All right, on to our employee handbook. Thank you, Mr. Mills. Would you like to kind of highlight for us what changed? And then if the board has
Absolutely.
questions, we'll ask them.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. And I did not test the links yet, Joanne. I'm going to wait for the updates that are below all this agenda. Once those are all approved, then I want to go through and test all of those links. So thanks for hitting a couple of those. We talked about that. Good news, not a lot of updates. I went ahead and changed names for the future. I mean, that's just something that has to be done. And then there was very few places that's in red. Page 8. And we had all the McKinley look at all their departments. So we had what, 40 sets of eyes on everything. Everybody looked at their area, made the changes. And I noticed even last year, we still missed some things. We missed the executive director, associate superintendent, like 3 times. So even everybody looking at it, we still miss things. So there's not a lot of updates other than what's highlighted. Very few to go over. Anything with the supervision of students on page 33, that was all cleaned up and highlighted in red, and the rest of it crossed out. And then the other ones were just on page 49. Again, those were just name changes to associate superintendent that all of us missed last year. That went through from last year.
I had one spot. I'm making sure I'm on the right page number. Okay, it looks like it's page 8 with the bottom corner numbers, or 9 if you're clicking through the PDF file. The updated language there under employment where it discusses classified employees, I think that still is not quite consistent with our policy change. So we might want to just copy the language over from the policy.
Oh, yeah, because that was done like 6 months ago.
Yes.
Good catch, yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Did
'cause we
that.
changed
We had
that.
discussions
Okay.
about that. I went ahead and changed it. So yeah, good catch.
Perfect. Yeah, because I think
Yep.
it's close. It just needs that, basically that additional sentence that kind of changes the tone from being that employment can end at any time to employment is continued
Yep.
based on evaluation. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll clean that up.
Okay.
Perfect. Good catch.
And then I had 2 questions at the very end. Appendix D. I think it was. I noticed that we moved some of our positions around, but they weren't highlighted. So I just wanted to make sure, is there anything else on those appendices there that we need to make sure we look at? I think the ones I noticed, Welcome Center and Student Services moved from category B to category C. I wasn't sure if that was intentional, or I just wanted to
Yes.
make sure I made mention of it.
Yeah, Dr. McDonald and I met about this on several occasions. You can jump in when you want to there. These two individuals are both doing two jobs, basically. So we tried it for a year, half a year to see how that worked, and we see that needs to be moved over because of the amount of work that those two individuals do in those two departments, handling two, basically doing two desks, and we combine that into one.
Yeah, I just like, for example, one was the IC coordinator that was previously category C, that was combined, and so after the probationary period, it was just moved from a B to a C as it needed to be.
All right. Were there any other changes like that that maybe didn't get highlighted, just to make sure that we are paying attention to those? I really don't want to have to go through 75 pages side by side, so just making sure we know where all the changes are at.
73 pages this year. Scaled her down to.
Good work.
Yeah, and once those links get, I'll check all those, double check those, get the page 8 cleaned up. And anything else, please email me if you see anything as you peruse over this next couple weeks and have more discussion at the Cal.
Can I give you just a couple? And then I can email you the links that I tried, and that might save you some time.
Yeah, it'd be best if you emailed me.
Okay, the part with the administrative staff with Dr. Brenner, if you could spell out coordinator, yeah, all right, coordinator spelled out, but teaching and learning is TNL. If we could spell that out, because it is for everybody else.
Yeah, some of that didn't come across. I was working off of Google and a doc. So on mine, it's all aligned. So yeah, we'll get the format. Don't worry about formatting. We'll get that.
Okay,
cleaned up.
and then on page 48, I think we missed a executive. There, it was a change. Let me get down there real quick. Because you had changed all of the titles in that one. Oh. For some reason, that doesn't seem like it's the page. I will email you that, but there was,
Okay.
it was something with changing. Oh, nope, it's on page 49, sorry. Care of school property. All of the executive director of finance and facilities and operations had been changed, except for I actually on page 50 saw one kind of at the beginning of that paragraph. It says curtains and painting of assigned work areas must have the approval of the supervisor and executive director of finance, facilities, and operations. It's right at the top of page 50.
Got it.
Yeah, and I think all the others, I did have one other question about, on page 35 at the top, it mentions it says staff must never leave students unsupervised without authorization or an emergency arrangement in place. And so I just wanted to make sure that whatever language we have in the student handbook and in, if there's anything with activities, that all of that aligns. Just because,
Right.
you know, there's times when maybe students get back late at night from a speech meet or football game or whatever, you know, I just want to make sure that we have alignment across all of our handbooks on that point. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. The last page, appendix I, the pay deduct days, That is decided,
Which
That-
page?
the very last page, appendix I.
Oh, the paid.
Yeah, with
Yep.
pay deduct. That all is determined in negotiations. Is that
Right.
right? Okay, just making sure that was part of that process. When we circle back to that next time, I may have questions, but not for now. Anything else from the board? Questions you have about the employee handbook?
Not really, but I did look at like our student last day. That's gonna be on a Friday. Should we look at if there's going to be an end of year thing? Is it going to be a full day so that we're not doing that last minute this year?
Oh, with the calendar
Mhm.
side of things.
You know, and I don't know about all the schools, but I know there were quite a few where teachers did not get checked out when they got out at noon early enough to go to the thing. So then they had to report the next day, even if they didn't have to report the next day. So
Yeah, that's probably a conversation. Dr. McDonald, would you mind just having a conversation with Carrie at the foundation, like early on? Make, even now, maybe, while it's fresh on our mind to make sure that we're planning ahead for what end of
We've
school
already-
year looks like.
Yeah, she had to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, we've met with
Okay.
Brandon and I met with her, and we've got a good plan.
Okay.
Put together for next year in regards to, just a final send off, for staff recognitions and then celebration of house. So
Okay,
I think it should blend well.
perfect. Yeah, that's a good thought. As fun as it was to have a surprise early out, we don't really want to make a habit of doing that. So, okay, excellent. Anything else? Okay, same thing with this one. If you have formatting things that you see, those are fine to just email over to Mr. Mills. Things like links that don't work, those types of things. If you see anything content wise that you know, have questions about or would like to see changed, then bring those to our next meeting discussion. And then similarly, our goal will be to approve this in July. Okay, on to our Board of Education handbook. So there is an attachment there. At our last committee of the whole meeting, we had a pretty in-depth discussion about what we want the intent, the purpose, the goals of a board handbook to be. What some of the most helpful things would be to have in there. And I just want to reiterate that if you have thoughts, now is the time to share those, because what I don't necessarily want to happen is for somebody to do all of the work putting together this handbook document, for it to then be brought to the board and everybody then to have all sorts of new ideas and concerns and questions and then start it over from scratch, because that's a lot of work on whoever is putting together those documents. So I just want to make sure that we're cautious of that. So if you have thoughts, don't save them until later. Make sure you share those now so that we just build it right from the beginning. So the notes from our discussion last meeting are there in front of you as an attachment. I just basically summarized the questions that were asked and ideas that were brought up. And then the printed document in front of you is from Dr. McDonald. So I had asked him to provide any thoughts that he had, especially since he wasn't a part of that meeting. And so that's what you see here in front of you. And I just kind of glancing through these after getting here tonight, I think that your thoughts really align with a lot of what we were thinking too, but I appreciate some of the specifics that you listed out here.
A lot of that, and just, a lot of that was from NASB. So, yeah, I'm sure a lot of the, is out there and other schools have utilized it as well. So that's, so you know, that's where that came from.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. So I would just like to open this back up. I'd like to, after tonight, be able to compile all of our notes, add anything that we may need to add, and then send those over to Marcia and ASB to start the process of creating a draft and compiling all the information we have. So after thinking about it, after our last meeting, reviewing their notes, does anybody have anything that you want to make sure we add or update or change on this topic?
I don't really have anything to change. I just thought this, in our discussion that we had at the committee of a whole and then looking at it written out, was very thorough. Was very thorough. So I was impressed with all of these things, and I think it will will answer questions to new board members as they come on in the future. I think, as long as it doesn't get too, as I talked about, too wordy. You know, some of these will be 1 to 2 sentences
And then a link to go
and then
find
a
the
link.
rest.
Yes.
Absolutely.
One piece that I might recommend that we add is something about Rule 10, just because that's referenced a lot and I mean, if you're new, then you might not know what Rule 10 is.
Mhm.
But that's one that is referenced often.
Great suggestion.
And then I think the only other things, and I believe these things will be covered, but just kind of to reiterate that when the board makes a decision, even though we bring individual ideas and we all have our own identities that we bring to the meeting, that when a decision is made, that it's a board decision. And then also maybe something about relationships with each other outside of board meetings, because I know that can be something that's a little bit confusing to people. And then also just a note on the Roberts rules that we don't follow them strictly, but I think that would be
That's a
something
guide.
that will come up. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have added those to my notes here. Mitch, I know you weren't there part of that discussion, and you are our most recent board member who got a long email from me with 5 million links and things to try to help orient you to board work. Is there anything that you feel like we've maybe missed in that document that would have been helpful for you to have coming on?
Not a problem.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? We must have been very thorough last meeting. I thought we would for sure have more things to add the second go round. Okay, excellent. So I will compile all of this. I will send that over and I will hopefully have some sort of an update for you at the committee of the whole about where we are, or if the board has more work to do on that, if Marcia has questions for us, that type of thing. So I will provide an update for you. I would not expect that will have a draft to review by then, but thank you.
And you'll include this document that
Yep.
we looked out.
Yep, I will absolutely make sure that those are included as well. Okay, and if you think of anything else that you want to make sure that we add to that, you are certainly welcome to email me and we'll make sure that we get it sent over and that we update the group at our next meeting. Okay, our next agenda item, there are a lot of attachments here. So you'll see this is kind of split into 2 parts tonight, and I just want to clarify why that is, and then I'll turn that over to Dr. McDonald. We reviewed at our executive council committee a large packet. When it's printed, it's a chunky packet of all of the policy change recommendations that came over from KSB following the legislative season. And some of these, most of them are required. There are a couple that would be optional for us as a board. And there was one of those policies, you'll see it down below, 5048, that actually needed to be in effect by July 1st. And so given that we try not to take action at our committee of the whole meetings, if at all avoidable, we felt like that was best to go ahead and bring that as an action item tonight. All of the others are just discussion items. So you'll see all of them there in this discussion item. And then when we get later there into our action items, there's one that we will make a recommendation to approve tonight. So Dr. McDonald, do you want to take us through some of these policy recommendations, kind of like you did with us in our executive council?
Do you have a copy of this? Or do you want to share? I think I didn't.
Oh, yeah, I can
I
pull
have
up the
them online.
attachments, so.
I don't think they're not, the synopsis isn't a part of it.
Sure, thank you.
I thought I would.
Bring my book with me.
Okay. I just thought I would go over the synopsis of each policy, as most of them are required. And just to go through them, we'll start with 2008, and that's the Open Meetings Act. Again, LB 596. This new law requires a selected method of notice to be published in your meeting minutes. We need to make sure that the minutes would include a meeting notice publication method for the school website for this change. And then this also adds a notice of notice publication requirement. So 4 times per year in a newspaper of general circulation in the district, we must publish our regular meeting schedule, the location of regular meetings, and our method of publishing meeting notices on the website. And then below that is the example there in the synopsis of what that those publications would be for the newspaper in the new law and that requirement. 3003 bidding for construction, remodeling, repair, and site improvement policy. The only thing that changed was the State Board of Education had made an adjustment from the $109,000 threshold to $136,000 threshold within that policy. The revision of policy 3003.1. This is bidding for construction, remodeling, repair, or related projects financed with federal funds. The federal government updated their threshold for micro purchases from $10,000 to $15,000, and for purchases made pursuant to the simplified acquisition procedures from $250,000 to $350,000. And so those were the threshold updates within that policy. Excuse me. And then in 3004.1 was the fiscal management for purchasing and procurement using federal funds. And again, the change was the micro purchasing from $10,000 to $15,000. And then the simplified acquisitions, again, from $250,000 to $350,000 threshold. So those two policies do match when you're utilizing federal funds for bidding and or procurement operations there, and those were required as well. Policy 3048 was on communicable diseases. This policy now aligns better with the DHHS requirements. It gives staff clear steps to assess and respond to signs and symptoms of the communicable disease. This was also a requirement. Revision of policy 3057. We do use the full version for Title IX. And with this reporting system in 2005, it does provide some updates, modified how current sex offenses are defined, prior separated sub definitions for things like sodomy, sexual assault with an object. And some of those definitions have now been updated according to the policy. Policy update does reflect the additional definitions of sexual assault within the Title IX policy itself. And this is a requirement as well. A new policy, but a required policy is 3061. We do send electric payments through utilizing our current bank with Nebraska Land Bank. We are an originator because we have an agreement with the bank. And since we do, we need to have a policy that requires that we have a written fraud monitoring process, and that's explained within policy. And so that's a requirement as well. Let's see, revision of 4017 with the relations with employee collective bargaining associations. So this was LB 429. This requires schools to treat all professional employee organizations equally. Schools cannot designate certain days or breaks by reference to a specific organization now. LB 4, let's see. Some of the tweaks to LB 429, as an example, a professional employee organization is one which offers liability coverage or collective bargaining assistance. So in theory, a local insurance agent, as an example, could say that they are a professional employee organization and thereby want access to our commons area during in-service days, emails, mailboxes, etc. And so this policy actually addresses those concerns and cleans that up for school districts. Policy 4019, Workplace Injury Prevention and Safety Committee. Previously, the schools were required to establish safety committees through the collective bargaining process. LB 397 changed that requirement. It now allows, but does not require, that the safety committee be established through the collective bargaining process. So we need to have a safety committee. It's just, you don't necessarily need to address that through your collective bargaining. Let's see, policy 4056, resignation of certified staff. This really was introducing a reference. It was just cleaning up an outdated reference that was in regards to professional practice commission. So it updated where we're currently at with the professional practice commission and with the Nebraska Department of Education, and outline the parameters of the current statute within the policy. This is a new policy, 4065. It is not required. It is recommended. It came recommended by KSB. I guess I would also echo their recommendation, provide some staff use of AI tools. AI is obviously up and coming, and we're utilizing it more and more. This provides some expectations in regards to staff use, and it's something that we're going to continue to look at each and every year with AI as it continues to develop, and as the Nebraska Department of Education wraps their mind around how they're going to utilize AI for staff and students. This policy is a new policy. Is designed to work with the unity with policy 4012 on staff computer and internet use. This policy has an AI tool approved process so that staff must obtain the permission of an upline administrator before putting information into the AI tool. It also prohibits staff from using AI to make decisions like student grading that should be based on professional judgment. And finally, the policy includes detailed prohibitions on misuse of AI tools and guidelines on when it is permissible to use an AI recording or transcription tool. So I think that those are all appropriate. I will say that I believe October 15th, we have a professional development opportunity where we're going to bring some people out to help and address and go through with our staff in regards to use of AI, how to use it within a classroom, appropriate use, how to develop and enhance lesson plans and content and those types of things. And so I think that fits nicely with this policy as we move forward, and provides professional development training for everybody. So
Do we have an attachment for that one? I don't see it on our agenda. And I mean, we'll look at that one several times. So if we bring it,
4065.
yeah, I don't think, okay.
Mm-mm.
Yes, I didn't think so.
Here.
Okay.
Ryan, Cynthia and I.
Yeah, and maybe we were thinking we'd wait and see if the board wanted to move forward. I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal tonight, because that's one, since it's a new policy, we'll look at a couple of times before we would take action. But maybe if we just make sure that we have a draft of that for committee of the whole, so that we have plenty of discussion.
I knew I read an AI policy, but it's 6038, so I was
Two
confused.
different things, yeah.
Like, wait a second, I read one, I know I did.
Well, that's right here. So I know it's a part of.
Yeah, we've got the
it's,
paper.
Maybe it just didn't get with the
Yeah.
can that I had.
Yeah.
We can add it to the agenda if we'd like to, since it's a discussion item.
Sure.
Keep it on there so everybody has that, if that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds good, because I definitely think that's a good one for us to move forward with the conversation on that.
Policy 5001, compulsory attendance and excessive absenteeism. LB 937 provided more concrete process for the excusal of absences for physical or mental illness. Updated the policy to reflect the process, which calls for verification from certified medical professionals. It requires educational stability for students whose parents, guardians, or educational decision makers are subject to an active child abuse or neglect investigation from the Department of Health and Human Services and or law enforcement. It also prohibits their disenrollment or transfer for 14 days or otherwise permitted by the department. So again, this was a required policy change of the compulsory attendance and excessive absenteeism policy. Policy 5003, admission of part-time students. The part-time student is the unicameral divided sports and activities into 3 buckets this year, each bucket having a different number of minimum credit hours required to participate as part-time enrollees. First one is on activities. The NSAA requires at least 5 credit hours for part-time students. to be taking 5 credit hours within the school system to be active for athletic and activities, and then it also breaks it down into other activities that's regulated by other governing bodies like FFA, FCCLA, et cetera. And then it also ties credit hours to that. So basically keeping 5 credit hours to each one of those buckets. And then the third one is activities not regulated by any governing body or athletic activities association like prom or a chess club or any type of club. Keeping it uniform to 5 credit hours if you're a part-time student to be a part of that, if you would like to participate in those activities for the school district. Policy 5035 is on student discipline. Again, this is according to LB 653. It added an exception to the suspension prohibition for pre-K through 2nd grade students. Schools may now suspend students in this age range with a violent behavior capable of causing physical harm. But it also indicates and defines short-term suspensions. It indicates that schools must now provide oral and written notices to the student and their parent or guardian or educational decision maker before the suspension begins, and give the student an opportunity to present the evidence prior to the suspension. It also indicates that the law requires principals to schedule a meeting with the student and parents prior to the student returning to school from a short-term suspension. And the law says if a principal has not arranged that meeting, the parent can request one. I know that on the 18th of June, KSB is having a webinar specifically in regards to student discipline and some of this new information. So they will have a recording that is out there for our ADCO team to watch and make sure that they are up to date in regards to the new law changes there. LB 548, again, this is the one that we would like to approve this evening. Emergency responses to life-threatening asthma or systematic allergic reactions. Policy must be implemented as of July 1, 2026. NDE and DHHS updated the standard response protocol contained in NDE Rule 59. LB 457 required slight tweaks in the policy, which included that a general response protocol does take the place of existing self-management plans, 504 plans, or IEPs already in place for specific students, and that a copy of the policy and the protocols be included in every school handbook. And we've got a couple more here. Policy 6038 is student use of AI tools. We do have a policy 6038. This would add to it. The addition would be major additions to the policy are on explicit list of prohibited uses for students, such as AI deepfakes and other AI generated harassment, non-consensual intimate images of real people, putting classmates' personal information into AI tools, and using AI to get around accommodations or current filters. It does indicate that students may use AI for approved as assistive technology through IEPs or Section 504 processes, and authority to reach off-campus AI conduct that disrupts school is also a part of that policy and the implications of those consequences. So those would be just updates to our current 6038 policy for students.
I had one thought on this one, or a question, and this might be something that if we're sending any questions over to Bobby, maybe something that we want to include. But on page 2 of this one, under F, it clarifies that students can't use AI tools to place another student or staff member name, photo, voice, or personal information into an AI tool. And then it says without staff member authorization. I assume, do you know what the blue language is meaning there? Like the difference between the blue and the red?
Which?
So I'm on page 2,
Which one?
3F.
3F.
Yeah, because my thought is, I mean, AI is taking everything that you feed to it, and that's where some of these deep fakes are coming from. And personally, like, I think a lot of parents probably wouldn't want their child photo or anything put into an AI tool, even if a staff member authorized it. So I'm not sure that that is all encompassing there, but I also wasn't sure what the difference was supposed to be between the red and the blue language.
Well, I think, and maybe there's some clarification there that's needed, but I guess I would look at that from the standpoint if they sign that it's okay for students to be part of photographs, those types of things, then that's a part of the same process. And if they indicate that no, their photograph can't be used, then that would also be something that everybody would need to be aware of in regard to those violations. So, but maybe there's some more clarification that just needs to be.
I definitely think we're going to want to be clear on that because I think it's a very different question of, if somebody would want their child photographed and put on the website versus their child's photo put into an AI database to forever be able to impersonate them. I think that's a really different conversation. And I almost lean towards, I think it should be we don't put children's information in AI at all. I think that would be the conservative, prudent, responsible stance as a district. But I also don't know how you possibly enforce that. So,
I can get some clarification from Bobby.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a good discussion to have for sure. And that's probably a discussion we need to have when we talk about the staff policy too, is just really understanding that when you put something in there, like AI is forever using that to generate more content.
He met with all the teachers at the end of the year in all the curriculum meetings. We went through a plan, basically a procedure to reduce the use at the student level of the AI tool. And reminded them, I agree with you, especially with the personal identifiable information. And reminded them about they're not allowed to put any of that or have students do the same thing. So I think with the district's move for providing professional development around that, policy guidelines, I think that's going to be pretty helpful.
Yeah.
And teaching and learning and McDonald's and Brian, the tech department have worked on some specific language.
Okay.
That's right, more descriptions, especially if
Okay.
it can be monitored more closely.
Right. Yeah.
Show them if they're looking for a while, they got district approved with this.
Okay. Perfect. Good. Yeah, it just,
Working on together.
yeah, absolutely. Cause we're all on social media. We see like the chat GPT prompts that, make the really cute picture of you and a little word web of all the things that you love to do and quirks about you. And I could just see, there's educational value in creating things like that. But once you've uploaded your photo to chat GPT or whatever it may be, really understanding the dangers that come with that. So I appreciate the thought put into that.
Anything else there or?
No, sorry to interrupt. I just had that thought and didn't want to forget it later.
Yeah, so, and the last one was just policy 6046 is required right to access school library materials. LB 390 requires each school board of a public school district to adopt a policy relating to access by a parent, guardian, or educational decision maker to certain school library information. The new policy provides parents, guardians, and educational decision makers the right to access a catalog of all books in the school district's library and the right to opt in to certain notifications when their student checks out a library book. So that was the new right to access school library materials.
I guess just a question on that. Is that something that we need to, if we haven't include that in the new students or in the student handbook for this next year?
We may,
Okay.
or at least link to it.
Mhm.
The other thing I would just draw your attention to is just with policy 5048 that's on as an action item tonight. Within the agenda itself, there is that emergency response to life-threatening asthma or systematic allergy reaction, and that is the actual protocol that we would sign off on. So that would be part of that policy. That's the document that will be attached to that as well.
Any other questions or discussion from the board? All right. Thank you, Dr. McDonald, for bringing all of those to us. If you think of any additional questions, board, Cindy, would you pass that? If you think of any additional questions, by all means, bring them to our committee of the whole meeting. We'll have another opportunity to look at most of these prior to any adoption. Okay, we will go ahead and move on to our action items for tonight. So to open up the first one, our North Platte Para Educator Negotiated Agreement, I would first entertain a motion to approve the 2026-2027 North Platte Para Educator Negotiated Agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2026-2027 North Platte Public School District Para Negotiated Agreement.
Second.
Okay. And then just a little bit of rationale here or a little bit of information, and we'll open this up for discussion if there are questions. So this is just a 1-year negotiated agreement. So we did have the conversation about negotiating 1 year at a time. We also had the discussion about next year starting our negotiations earlier so that the timeline is the same as when we're negotiating with our teachers. Not only is that just better suited to negotiations, but it also helps us a lot with financial planning and knowing where we're going to be and what costs are incurred through that process. So we did meet a number of times. We had some great meetings with our para association, and you'll see all of the changes are highlighted here in the document. A couple that I wanted to make sure that we just called out because they're somewhat significant changes. We did add a holiday. So that is a change in there that is a little bit better in alignment with what we do for our other staff. We also did change our substitute para pay. They were changed a step there. And then the biggest change that I want to make sure that we draw the board attention to, and then I'll open this up for anyone else to add anything to it. But the biggest change that we adjusted in here is the actual scale itself. So if you remember before, the para scale actually had 3 separate scales, and it was a little bit confusing to try to navigate. And so what we did was we went through and consolidated that. And so the different levels are still indicated there along the side of the scale, but it's all in one scale and one document. Those levels are still determined by the category, which is defined there below, the different roles that paras may have. You'll see down there below. But the part that I'm actually really excited about, I did not know this prior to para negotiations. So this is why these things really matter. Our paras have been having to negotiate every year whether or not they all moved up a year on the pay scale. And so there were times where they would essentially be frozen at the same step on that pay scale for multiple years in a row. And I actually did not realize that that was our practice. I definitely don't think that's the best that we can do here at North Platte Public Schools. And so that was one thing that we had some long discussions about. I actually don't even think that was a change brought by the paras, but in learning that that is what happened, we really wanted to fix that. And so part of the negotiated agreement, not only did we change that pay scale structure, we put an increase on the base wage, but we are also adding to where paras will move forward every year. So whether or not anything is increased on the base wage, that part will be determined in negotiations each year, but they will be moving forward a year or a step with each year that they are employed by the district. And so I think that that's something that hopefully will show our appreciation for them staying with the district and creates a little bit of a longevity incentive in there. For those that were on the negotiations committee, anything else that you would like to highlight from our discussions or in this document to make sure the full board is aware of?
Well, and the other thing that we did was we added that $500 stipend for 5 consecutive years, which is kind of in line with what we do for our teachers. Our paras are so important and we appreciate everything you do. So we want to make sure that this negotiation, you feel that, and hopefully you did.
I would just add that I really appreciated being able to participate in this process, and there were some things that I learned as well. And so it was a really good process and working with these ladies was fantastic. It was really, it was really good to be able to work through some of the challenges that they face. And I agree. I think we're doing some really good things and hopefully promoting longevity and just showing our appreciation for the work that they do. So.
And Lori should teach a class on organizing by color and folders. Yes, I was thoroughly impressed. Dr. McDonald, anything that you would like to add or highlight from this process?
Appreciate everybody's professionalism. I thought we had really open and honest discussion and I thought it went well. So thank you.
Mr. Mills, anything? Okay. Our paras that are here, anything else that you want the board to know from our meetings or this agreement or any thoughts you had? Not to put you on the spot.
To both sides.
Yes, it was.
We shared information that we assumed that you were aware of
Uh-huh.
and found out that some of it wasn't, but in return, you shared information. Diligent for us to know also.
Well, we appreciate, I thought it was a very productive process. It took us a while, but that's because we were doing good things, I think. Any questions from the board on this document? You've got all three of us from the board that were on the committee, Dr. McDonald, Mr. Mills, and our para association representatives here. So you've got lots of people to answer questions if you have any.
If Kevin can just make sure payroll gets a copy of this, so they can make their changes. Okay.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion. Sheila, roll call, please.
Kim Baldwin,
Aye.
Madeline Green,
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor,
Aye.
Emily Garrett,
Aye.
Angela Landy.
Aye.
Mitch Pike.
Aye.
Okay. We're passed. All right, our next action item, I'm actually probably going to recommend that we don't take action tonight. So I'm going to have you hold off on a motion and I will update you on why not, because I got correspondence from Bobby today. So an update on this policy. We have discussed this a lot of times and we are on draft 5 now, something like that. So this version came following our committee of the whole discussion last month. And in that discussion, there were concerns that were brought up about the use of the terminology routine monitoring. So that language has changed to be a little bit more specific there. And actually, Bobby did not have any concerns about that. So I think that that was a positive change that I'm hoping addressed those concerns that were brought forth and is a little bit more specific and clear about how vault should not be used and how it should be used. The remaining portion, if you'll remember the last draft that we looked at, had some bullet points that had been added in there. Basically to address all of the what ifs, what if a principal needs access to a student's email? What if technology needs access on a Friday night at 11 p.m. because of a cybersecurity threat? All of these types of things. And so it kind of had gone through and outlined the different reasons that you might need information from Vault, who was authorized to get that information. Last meeting, there were a couple of individuals who felt that that was too specific, might end up feeling like it's tying hands too much. And so we tried to consolidate that down. And so that's the language that you see here. This language was sent out to the board. I specifically did call Skip because I know he had some concerns and wanted to make sure the draft that I was sending to the attorney addressed his concerns. I also sent it to Ryan Tegmeyer, who I heard back from, and it was kind of a grammatical redundancy that there was a spot that we might be able to strike through something in this version. Officer Johnson responded this morning or this afternoon maybe, and he was comfortable with this language. Bobby responded, and as I mentioned, the first part, no concerns with. Where he did have some concerns is that this language, although it doesn't necessarily change the intent, on the back end of this, what this could unintentionally do is put a lot of pressure and responsibility on our technology team. So if we have limited vault access, but we haven't really specified for what and by whom, and it just says based on scope of job duties or something along those lines where we try to consolidate down. The danger of that language is when they go to the technology department, and let's say you have someone that goes in and they request information from Brian, now that has made it Brian's job to try to decide if that was in their scope of work or not.
Right.
And that could be an uncomfortable position to put the technology staff within. The other downside of that is if everything ends up being funneled through them that way, that could put our technology staff at risk of having access to what would be deemed need to know information that they wouldn't necessarily need to or even want to know in the instance of an investigation. So those were the cautions that he put forth. Some ways that we could address that, and then we'll open this up for discussion, and I'd love to hear how the board would like to move forward, but some ways that we could address that concern would be to kind of, if you remember back probably 3 versions ago, there was some language in there that said that they went through the associate superintendent or superintendent. That was changed because it was brought to my attention that that might be limiting principals or directors. One option would be to kind of go back to that because that puts the ownership of that decision-making back on the superintendent or associate superintendent, which is probably more appropriate than putting it on our technology team. The other option would be to keep this language as is and add in some sort of a caveat that if there is any let me look at the word that he used because I don't speak legalese. Bobby does, so let me read it. Basically, if there were to be a disagreement about access or a dispute, that it would go to the superintendent to make a final decision. So if a director came to Brian and requested information and Brian was like, I don't really know if that's information that I should be providing, that could be taken to the superintendent. Then at that point, my only concern is that that still kind of has made our technology staff the middleman and could cause some weird dynamics. But that was one potential solution to the problem. So I would like to just open that up and just hear your thoughts and your reactions to that.
Well, I just got from our discussion at the committee of a whole that it really isn't that big of a deal to send the email to Brian to get the information. So I don't know why it would be a problem to CC the superintendent. And if the superintendent says, absolutely not, that is not in your scope, then that's his call, like, or the associate superintendent. They're the top of the pyramid anyway. Because yeah, I don't think technology should have to make that call.
I agree with that. I do. Because the superintendent is hired to be in charge of the school
Yeah.
district, so,
Mhm.
yeah, that wording would, and that would alleviate some pressure on them,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
And I don't think I caught that we had kind of cut them out. So, yeah, I agree that to some degree, the superintendent and the associate superintendent need to be involved in the process there.
Wow, because then even if Brian hasn't heard from Dr. McDonald, he can send him an email and be like, I got this request. You cool with this?
Mhm.
And then if he's like, oh my gosh, no, then that's his job to call that out, not Brian or Kyle's or Spencer's or Carl's or whatever.
Yeah, I think where this came from, Joanne, it's been several meetings ago. But initially it had been in there that the superintendent and the associate superintendent would be who could request information. And then it was still the technology department that had the login. So we kind of created that 2-key system, right? But then as the discussions progressed, there were concerns brought forth from Mrs. Busher, from a couple of different places about that could be tying someone's hands if a building administrator needed quicker access to something. I personally have always had the thought process that if something is significant enough that it is like emergency, like we need to look this up today,
Mhm.
that it probably is something the superintendent or associate superintendent is already involved in or should be, whether it's a staff or student concern. So I guess I struggle to see a situation where that would really tie someone's hands. And I think that that removes some of that ownership from other team members that maybe don't, that that's not the right place to put that responsibility. So I think, you know, when you've hired a superintendent and you have an associate superintendent, we are trusting them to make those decisions. And that is a big responsibility. And not that you're on call 24/7, but if it's during a school day and there is something that needs immediate attention,
Well, and
we would
the-
assume one of those individuals would be reachable.
And the administrators that we talked to at the last meeting said they didn't even know we really had this program until this was coming up. So we're not tying anybody's hands right now.
Mhm.
And if you can CC someone on, if you can send an email, you can CC someone. It's not hard.
So get that exact wording from Bobby then.
Well, it probably will go back to what because he had already approved the language that basically summarized
Back
that.
Like the third,
Yeah.
okay.
So it would probably be a matter of taking that language back. And then if everyone feels more comfortable with that language that's in here that replaced the routine monitoring, I think that's language that we could keep from this version and basically combine them. And maybe next month we can approve this policy. So are there any changes? So kind of viewing them as separate discussions, are there any concerns within that like first section there? That lays out how it should be used and not used. Okay. I am very excited we have reached a point of consensus with that because that took us a while to get there. So that is really good. So really it's that second half that we'll revisit. I think the last paragraph where we added, you know, that the safety committee is part of looking over that. I think that suggestion stays. I will work on combining that together. We'll send it back over and we'll have a draft to review at our committee meeting. Anything else on that before we move on? Okay.
No, I appreciate you doing that. I know that you didn't want to. I mean, I know that this was thrown at you by another board member. And you're getting a lot of slack for it, which is ridiculous. So sorry about that.
That's okay. That is my job, so it is just fine. But I do want to reiterate, like I think that this process on this policy, it has at times been frustrating, and I think you've probably seen my frustration a little bit in that. It's been under a lot of public scrutiny, and it also came on the back end of what was a very stressful and emotional time for those of us on the board, honestly. So it could have gone a lot of different ways, and I do appreciate the discussion on this board has remained very professional, very productive. So I do want to thank you guys for that. I think that we are getting to a place that this policy is going to be a very good policy. And I know it wasn't always a comfortable process to get here, but I appreciate you sticking it out with us.
It was
So
a learning experience.
yes, it is. It is a learning experience, but this is where policies, you know, this is what policies are here for. When things happen and we go, oh, shoot, we were not prepared or protected for that. You learn and you do the best you can and you move forward. So
I do appreciate the work that's been done on it. I think there has been a few people that could have maybe participated a little bit more in the process. I also think that, as I've mentioned before, the formation of an ad hoc committee could have been very beneficial to this process. But it is what it is, and I do appreciate that we're finally getting somewhere, so.
I agree. I agree. And I think that having the conversation, while I think an ad hoc committee probably could have saved us time, I think that having these conversations publicly with everything that's transpired is probably important. So
So do we
I'll
need to
take
do
the internet
anything?
hate, but we'll keep still doing the right thing. And I think this was the right thing to do. So at this time, I would recommend we don't make a motion. We're
Leave
just
it.
gonna leave it. Yep, we don't have to take action on something just because it's an action item. So we're just gonna move on to the next agenda item, and it will not be an action item on the committee of the whole meeting. I don't think that's necessary. It's not an emergency. We'll bring it back for discussion as kind of hopefully a last look and finalization of that language. Yep.
Mhm.
And then in July, hopefully we'll be ready to approve. Okay. Policy 5048. I will first entertain a motion to approve policy 5048 as presented. Or approve revisions to, I suppose, would be the correct language.
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
Okay, opening this up for discussion. Is there anything else that board members wish to discuss, or Dr. McDonald, that you want to add to this policy before we vote on it? Okay, I think we pretty thoroughly
It's
discussed it
required.
earlier.
It's
so
required
It's
Exactly.
required.
by
Yep.
July 1st.
July 1st, so the clock's a ticking. Okay, excellent. If hearing none, Sheila, let's roll call that, please.
Cindy O'Connor,
Aye.
Emily Garrett,
Aye.
Angela Lacy.
Aye.
Rich Wagner.
Aye.
Skip Ballsted.
Aye.
Joanne Linder.
Aye.
Okay. That policy passes. Make sure that you take a good look at the future board calendar. This time of year, there does start to be a lot of opportunities on there. So in addition to Cindy, will be on the radio tomorrow, and next month claims audit will be Skip and myself. There's also a school law seminar. I don't believe we've got anybody registered for that one this year. And then we do have some changes in our meetings this summer. So just make sure that your calendar is updated. Committee of the whole in June will be right here. We will not be in a building, so make sure that you come here for that next meeting. And then looking ahead, make sure you mark your calendar for things like the area membership meeting this fall, if you're able to make it. All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Garrett,
Aye.
Angela Lacy.
Aye.
Rich Wagner.
Aye.
Skip Ballsted.
Aye.
Joanne Linder.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.